Hello. Let's see. Let's see. Nagasmas, everyone. And we are on the 10 rules in daily life, 10 characteristics of a life with key. Number four, do good in secret, or a direct translation, do good in secret without expecting reward. Intoku. Uh, the literal meaning of intoku is shadow morality. This suggests doing the right because it is right, not only when someone is watching, or in exchange for another favor. Doing something without expectations of reward does not mean that you will not or should not accept a reward. The laws of nature and society alike ensure that the good deeds are recognized and rewarded in time. Like water in a basin, the more you push it away, the more it flows back to you. And the more you try to gather it yourself, the more it runs away. Learning to receive graciously is as important as learning how to give. However, we should let our good works produce their own rewards without keeping account on what people owe us in return. So, you know, let's try to discuss this uniquely. I think, doing good in secret in Toku, Curtis Sensei has, expounded on this quite a bit. I'd recommend going to his website and looking up his, because in Toku is one of the, key sayings we say before class. Um, but I'd like to get everyone else's input on this. I link it. Intoku, I think, is the secret to being a good Otomo. Because if you're just doing the little things without any expectations, doing what's right when no one is looking, but also, when you see something needs to be done, you just do it. And that leads you to a place where it just becomes a part of you. And I think Intoku is something where when it comes from a natural place in you is when somebody will come to you and goes, wow, you did that. That was so cool or so nice. And you go, oh, really? I didn't really even think about it. That's when it's natural. That's when it comes without uh, selfish, any selfishness whatsoever. So I would like to call on John first because, John's a priest at the temple. And what's your take on Intoku, John?
Oh, well, I was thinking about just doing good in secret, but as far as like in Toku, it just, I mean, it's similar in the sense that just not being selfish, I guess. I mean, being selfless. Uh, I don't know if Intoku is necessarily do good in secret, as in like you're secretly and covertly doing anything behind somebody's back, but more just being there, and paying attention, noticing, you know, like somebody's uh, like at dinner or something. Um, my mom would set up the table and stuff like that, but it would be just like, oh, what do we need? We need to wipe the table, we need dishes, we need cups, that sort of thing. As I mean, when I was growing up, that's how I felt like Intoku is a part of our lives.
Yeah, like what you said. If you think you're doing something good in secret, it's not Intoku. Because there's a reason you're thinking of doing something because you're thinking of getting some sort of benefit from it. And what did your father ever talk about this in any of his dealings?
You know, my father didn't talk to us so much. He was the quiet type. So
Ah,
yeah, it was more my mother. My mother was share like to be kind, to say hello, um, to be polite. main thing was always, say hello, right? Like, did you say hello?
Greeting people.
Greetings. So
Right.
yeah, go over there and help them with this or that. Yeah.
Right. Right. Interesting perspective. When you were in Japan studying, did you come across this at all? Did they talk about this at all?
No, it was pretty natural. Like you want to go and help people. Uh, I don't know if it's the culture, but I mean, I think that's the way I was brought up. Always being there, supporting other people,
Yeah, interesting.
and not respecting, expecting anything in return. Just doing it, trying to do it naturally. Yeah,
Doing
because we
things.
all benefit. We all benefit when we help each other out.
Right. 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 Interesting. Yeah. Well, Toby Vogel Sensei, how are you? And how do you explain this in Tokyo to people?
Good morning. Well, I don't talk about this so often. Um, I myself struggle with it because the moment you think about it, I wonder if you're doing good in secret. And the more since the time that I read Intoku or heard about Intoku, I'm more, thinking about it more. So the moment you do something, I remind myself, okay, don't expect anything in return. So that makes it kind of dualistic. I'm, I would have done, maybe I would have done it out of, without expecting anything in return. But the moment I did it, I start to think, okay, now don't expect anything in return, or something like that, or thinking about it too much and too often, so that it becomes kind of unnatural. It starts to become the rule, as if you do not expect anything in return. Does that make sense? I think since I read about it, it becomes more of an issue than before, let's say, because now I'm supposed not to expect something in return. And the moment this always pops up in my head somehow. So
Yeah, that's why I enjoyed reading this writing by Will Reed, and he said, "Learning to receive graciously is as important as learning how to give."
yeah.
Right, because a lot of times we think, oh, they gave us something. Oh, I feel bad now because they gave me something and I didn't know. Geez, what should I give them back? Yeah, that really is a doing good in secret is kind of like a conundrum in a sense, because it's a like duality in the sense that you can't, if you think about doing it, then why are you doing it? And it's like a dog chasing its tail. And yeah, it's something that it goes back to me as just doing what's right at any moment that comes up. Whether you like doing it or don't like doing it, you just do it because like, and I guess I was reading. I do a little research before these classes, and I basically I'll Google the term, then I'll just start putting things with it. Zen story, Sufi story. What can I say? What are other people talking about? And Intoku is such a unique term. I mean, literally, you get lots of key society hits when you Google it. A lot of stuff on Curtis Sensei because he's talked about it. But you don't get very many other things on it. There's a couple Zen, discussions about it, and they said the guy, the people who clean the bathrooms, they're doing good in secret in a sense. They're cleaning the bathrooms. The bathrooms just don't get clean on their own. somebody's actually cleaning them. And it's a thankless job in a sense, because nobody goes, wow, thanks for doing that. Such a good job in the bathroom. People don't talk about that. They don't congratulate the person who's weeding the garden. They just look and say, oh, what a beautiful garden. They don't think of, well, actually weeds grow there too, and you got to pull the weeds. That's why it's such an interesting perspective to see how other people think about this. I'd be interested, since we were talking about gardens and such, of talking to Lillian Paiva Sensei. She's very familiar with gardens.
Aloha, Sensei. Aloha, everybody. I won't go into the garden part yet, because I always talk to gardeners, whether it be here in Japan, wherever, and talk about the gardens. But in the whenever we've talked about Intoku, I tend to tell people, the students, that if everybody practiced Intoku, what a wonderful world this would be. Because I see Intoku as, like you were just kind of saying a minute ago, doing what needs to be done. And if you just do what needs to be done, it doesn't matter whether you don't stop to even think about whether you're doing it. So I tell the students, especially the younger students, that the best way to start practicing Intoku, if you're not sure how, is, kids weren't brought up the way I was, where you automatically jump up to help your parents with the table, and do the dishes afterwards, like John mentioned. We were brought up that way. You help clear the table, you did the dishes. Wherever I go, I help do that, or you mentioned a couple classes back about a sensei wiping the sink down in the bathroom.
Yes.
Always done that. Just because it needs to be done. I don't want someone to see me walk out the bathroom and think, I'm the slob. But it needs to be done. Whether I made the mess or not, you just clean it. Why should you do that? And of course, if there's rubbish on the floor, I pick up a paper towel or something else to pick up the stuff. I don't touch dirty stuff. But I still think if it needs to be done, let's do it. And I think for me, the hardest part of this is the part about being gracious about people doing for you or saying for you. I've never been able to take a compliment very well. Hem and haw. So that's where I need to work on it, because it is sort of a balance of doing and whatnot. And I have one more thought. Oh, and I think I just said this. I also do think people in public bathrooms, if you see them cleaning, I especially appreciate in Japan how wonderful they keep things clean. You'll see people with the mops and the broom and whatever, but wherever I go, even in a store, those people work so hard. I appreciate a clean store, and not just now during the pandemic, but always. So to me, like I said, this is just really being noticing and paying attention, but yourself just doing what needs to be done. And I love gardening. Since you mentioned gardens, and people always say, oh, they hate pulling weeds. I have no problem pulling weeds. To me, that's even like a meditation. It's part of what needs to be done. So I just even love to pull weeds. And I wish that when we donate to charity and stuff, we didn't get a tax deduction for it. So I don't think there should be a tax donation for charitable stuff. I don't want the receipt, don't want the stuff. That should be something we should do because we want to help the cause, whatever cause it is that we're helping. And I think that's the most I've talked in your class. So, there you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Lillian. I want to go back to John because you mentioned something about trash. John, remember when I taught a class, a beginner class, it was in the beginning class, and I said, what is something that really upsets you? And do you remember what you said? Yeah, John.
Me.
Yeah. Do you remember what you said?
No, maybe like someone smoking and throwing a bud on the ground.
You said throwing a cigarette on the ground or any garbage whatsoever. You hated when people threw garbage on the ground. Do you remember that?
Oh, but I remember there
So
was a
it really
time.
upset you.
Yeah. And I walked up to the person. I was like, "Hey, yeah."
So why is that?
Um, it's because cigarettes, I mean, it poisons the ground. I mean, the water runs off and into the sea and poisons the sea creatures there. So it's not only, um, I don't know. I just feel like it's really just like throwing poison on the ground and for us to consume it later in some way or fashion.
And you specifically said somebody threw some trash, like a garbage bag or something out their window or something like that.
It was a
Really?
cigarette. It was a cigarette. I
Cigarette?
went up to
Okay.
them, and then they started swearing at me, like, "F, mind your business." And I was like, "Oh," and I'm like, how should I deal with this as an Aikido student? And you said, "Oh, are you okay? What's going on? Like, why do you want?"
Right. Why didn't you just pick it up and throw it away and not bother them?
Well, I was in the car, so.
Right. Okay. I just had to bring that up because I remember that distinctly in the class of you getting so upset over that. So, with that, Olaf Schubert Sensei, how are you today? How was your summer camp?
Beautiful, as always. Good morning. Yeah, it was great. Smaller than usual, but still good group. Was a good time. Yeah, and lots of opportunities for Intoku. The dojo has to be kept clean, especially now, and somebody has to do it. And luckily, we had lots of training in that. Otomo, we talked a lot about, so I didn't have to do much. People just jumped in and did it. So every day it was cleaned and without a fuss. So I was happy. Yeah. I think a lot of has to do here with habits and with Keiko part. From my point of view, I'm a lazy guy. I was brought up, parents do everything for you, and then they try to get the kids to help somehow. And I found this very annoying as a kid. And how do you get kids to help in the household and with chores? So I think it has a lot to do with how you get brought up. And then in school, in at least in German school, the kids don't do anything for the school. Not like in Japan, where you clean your classroom and all that. So it's where do you learn Intoku? If not from your parents, then you don't learn it at all until you enter some form of school where they teach something like this. For me, it was Aikido, where it started, basically. I mean, I could have watched my mom doing everything for the household, and for some reason, they are born naturally with that. They do everything in what needs to be done, cleaning and washing the clothes, and all this is taken for granted. and I don't know, maybe girls are brought up differently. I don't know, or they have it in their genes. I don't know. But I was not taught. And of course, I had to help a little bit here and there, but the theme of Intoko and selfless action was never introduced to me as a child or even as an adult. If you work in a company, you do everything for money. And in an office situation, where does it ever come up to do something selflessly? I mean, the whole setup is to earn money, and if you take on another project, it is of course to further your career. So if you take up another study, it is of course to make more money afterwards, or to have more knowledge, or whatever. So where do you ever learn it? And I first encountered it in an Aikido dojo, and especially I have to say in a Ki Aikido dojo, because even in regular Aikido dojos, it's not really talked about selfless action. Never. And I basically learned it it was actually Aikikai dojo, where I was placed in the position of being dojo cho in Florida. And I had to do all this stuff because my sensei told me, okay, maybe he saw that I needed that. And I had to do everything. I have to manage everything. I didn't have to myself do everything, but make sure that everything gets done. So like a dojo manager, you know. And that first introduced the concept to me of all the things that have to be done in a dojo. And then it kicked in when I started my own dojo without any students. So I imagine it's like running a small temple without any monks, which happens a lot in Japan. These small temples, thousands of them, with no monks living there, just a priest. So you prepare everything, you maintain everything, you clean everything, and then maybe one student shows up, or 2 or 5 later. And then how do you introduce the concept to those students that it's the students' responsibility as well to keep the place and in a Western society. And it's very hard to do that. And still today, I am cleaning everything basically because I'm living here. This is my job, so to speak. And in my little temple here. And I have visiting students who have daytime jobs. And in our dojo, at least, it's more when we have permanent students like Uchideji, that I can really train this with them. But the regular daytime students who come once or twice a week, it basically sticks all to myself. So for me, I have lots of practice of doing things in and around the dojo that nobody ever notices. Like I talked about the other day, painting the whole garden walls in a different color and nobody even sees it. So, yeah. Yeah. And you can't tell them, why didn't you think? Where's your attention? Yeah.
Yeah, there's also the, there was an incident that happened during Christmas break. The dojo's closed for a few weeks, and I know a few people that would go in and they would strip the floor in the downstairs. They'd strip it and then wax it. And I remember the first time, I don't know, 2003, when I moved here, I noticed, wow, came back from break and wow, the floor is really shiny, really nice. I'm like, wow, who did that? Who did that? Nobody said anything. Nobody said anything, you know? And then I found out who had did it because, you know, Sensei was asking, hey, do you know who did that? I'm like, I don't know. And then 2 years later, I think I did it with another person. I've seen Fincher's done it a few times, and a few times it's kind of interesting. Curtis Sensei would go, "Oh, so and so, you noticed so and so did that," and I'd be like, "Who didn't?" It was actually somebody else, but he didn't know because, you know, somebody else had done it, and he was kind of given credit where credit wasn't due. I thought, and I got a little like, oh, what the hell, you know, that person's getting benefit out of this, and he didn't even do it. You know what it brought up in me, and that's what I found out is, oh wow, look how what this does to me. You know, when I feel somebody's getting credit for doing something good that didn't deserve it, and that was something that was a big learning perspective for me because I was like, oh wow, look how attached I was to that. You know, and that, it's, you know, that kind of, I'd call it selfishness in a sense, you know, is really insidious because, you know, we know the typical selfish person who does something just for the pleasure of pleasing himself, but then, you know, you'll get the other people who do stuff because they want to get something out of it, like, oh, I'm going to do this, and then, you know, I'll get something in return. And then there's the other type of selfishness that they do something because they don't want to feel bad. Like, oh, I better do this, otherwise I'm going to feel really guilty if I don't. You know, or I'm going to feel bad and then I'm going to complain about it to somebody else. You know, so-and-so is supposed to do that, but I did it, you know, to that other person. You know, but I did it. They were supposed to do it, but I did it. I ended up doing it. And that is, you know, those types of things kind of creep into your training if you're not careful. And you really have to be super aware of yourself. And so anytime something like this comes up, I always go, oh, how am I responding internally to this? You know, what does it bring up in me? And Intoku is like a really good one to see how, you know, it just, especially in a dojo atmosphere where there's a lot of personalities and a lot of things going on. And, you know, running a dojo, a nonprofit dojo is a lot of work. I mean, there's, you know, people right now are going to the dojo and cleaning and doing stuff because, you know, it still has to be done, even though we're not training there. And it's being done. I walk by there pretty much 2 or 3 times a week, and I know, oh wow, it's really nice there, you know. So with that being said, Fincher Sterling is now online. He texted me earlier and said I might be a little late, but he's here now. And I told him, well, the subject's Intoku. What do you say, Fincher?
I didn't even see your text on Intoku. I tuned in late, and I thought it was getting the praise you're due. Isn't that what the class is about? I heard my name, so I tuned in.
Yeah. You want to get credit.
Yeah, I want to get credit. I think this is a great subject. I actually didn't know because I've worked late and it's been you know, a big day at work, and so I'm just getting home. But I really like this subject matter. I think it's a fascinating perspective. On several levels, and everybody's kind of touching on it. I really enjoy this type of discussion. Why not get the reward you're due? I mean, why not? I mean, why do it in secret, in a sense? And I don't know if that's such a great term, but I think that a lot of it parallels a lot of our teachings in my mind, that unless we look deeper into ourselves, we really sell ourselves short on the reward basis. If we're doing something for praise, then that's our reward. How much deeper can we go? We get praise, we got paid. And if we do something and we don't get praise, oh man, that's junk. Yeah, I didn't even get any praise. So you don't get anything for your efforts because you're waiting for praise. But I think when in our teaching, it's really, we're focused towards value-based actions. And it's more a value of the effort itself. So if we learn that we're acting for our own reward, for the value that we have for this action, or for this dojo, or for this friend, or those types of things, then the reward is not based on somebody else. It's not based on an outside source. It's based on an inside source. And so I think this teaching is it's not everything that you think on the surface. I think it directs us to really looking at actions that in themselves are value-based and not based on somebody else's return and value. That when we do something, we don't need somebody else's approval or acclimate or any of that, because we're basing this action on an internal value, and that in itself is the reward that we receive. And I think it's a much deeper, much more solid posture, if you will, I just think it really directs us more towards what are we doing with ourselves? I mean, who are we? What is our action? It really brings us to an attentive perspective in why we do things. So I think it's really a fascinating teaching.
Yeah, I like what you said when it comes down to where the source of your action. Is the source coming from you at one point, or is it coming from somewhere else? And the source, if you're mind, body unified, whether you're giving or receiving, it's the same thing. There's no difference in giving or receiving. And I think that's what Toi Sensei is trying to say. I mean, doing what's right when no one is looking. And I like the direct translation of shadow morality. The underlying, source of where do your actions come from? Are they unnatural? Are they natural? Are they coming from your I am self, to please others, to please yourself? Or is it coming from a place of one point, and that's just infinite? I think that's something that should be thought about when you're thinking about Intoku, anyway. But Christelle, you look like you'd like to talk about this.
Yes, now I'm ready to talk about it. So because the other people inspire me to say something. Okay, the last sentence you said remind me at my experiences at Montchadon with the Buddhist retreat center in the Alps of France. And we do a special practice about loving kindness. This practice is called Nungye, and it's after one day you didn't drink, you didn't eat anymore, and on the other day you start again drinking and eating and so on. And you do all the time you do Shinweze practice, also Om Mani Padme Hum and so on. And during the meal at the first day, you always say a prayer, and the meaning of the prayer is giving and receiving are the same. Yeah, there's no difference and between you, the giver and the receiver, and this always impressed me. This prayer. Yes, this is one thing. Even at Montchadon too, we stay at a little house, and there is a garden and a grass there. And there's a student of Lama Töntsang living there at Montchadon. Is a woman, and she has so much loving kindness that she impressed me very much. I look for the vocabulary. Sometime I meet her doing this, and she had a little box with a ladybug in it, who has no legs. And he tries that this ladybug survived and feed him and give him grass and water and so on. And she was looking at the grass for some food for this ladybug, and she was so in this care mode, yeah, that this impresses me very much, because she just was doing it. So and she cares for the llama, and so, but not only for the llama, for the whole environment, for all the animals there and so on. This impresses me. And a long time ago, at Duisburg, at the dojo at Duisburg, and Jeff Baldwin Sensei, I miss him. He was with Curtis Sensei at Germany, one of the first times at Germany. And I was so impressed by his Otomo training, because you didn't notice him doing the things for the sensei. You just notice it at the end, after that. I said, okay, he has helped sensei, but I didn't notice. So he's doing good in secret, I think. He don't want to get the reward, or he has he just do the training, I think. Then, okay, another story. The last three years, I worked for a social welfare organization, and I have there a dojo too in the building, in the cellar. And we have Aikido mat there, and I do some ki training with the people, and there are people which have no work, and so, or diseases and so on, and older. And I do ki training with them and some relaxing exercise, one rhythm exercise, and so on. And very soon after we start this training, the people, even they are in an organization, they are not paid for it. They are because they have no work. The government pays them to go in this training and so on. And but soon I realized that they are very caring about the dojo. They get the dojo mind of this. When I come to the training in the morning, and even they are not Aikido students, but they take it very from their heart. They we meditate. We started with key breathing and meditation, and then do one with rhythm exercise and so on. And we train for 3 hours, 3 times a week. So, and they really get the feeling, the Aikido feeling, and they do they prepare the dojo. So when I come into the room, so I had just to sit, change my clothes, and do the training. So this has impressed me and very well, and I've really joy watching this kind of students, even they are not really Aikido students, and at a dojo, and so. But it was very precious for them, a precious opportunity, and I have so much fun to be with them. Yes, they are really Aikido students, but only for these 3 years. Okay, this is one story. Yes, and you tell the receiving part of the this kind of Oktoku, and sometimes I'm very upset with my bosses at another organization, and always and they don't pay so much, and so on and so, and always I'm thinking that now I like to give their organization something that really count, and then I spend money to Moshadon or to other religious organizations. I really how is that? We were doing good in secret, or we really do in Toko. And after this a certain time, like when if I'm looking to Jeff Baldwin Sensei, and then I realize that he has done good in secret, I realize that I receive so much after a certain time, but I don't want to get the reward, but I get it. And in my life, I always, this impressed me, that doing good in secret is really the way to be one with the universe. That's what I want to say.
Oh, that's very good. Thank you so much for sharing. I really enjoyed that. I think that maybe Gloria would like to say something.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I have 2 or 3 things to say. I was fortunate in that my grandmother, when I was probably 8 or 9, noticed that I had real trouble accepting compliments. Somebody would say that it's a cute dress you have on or something like that, and I kind of look at the floor. And so after one encounter, she took me aside and she said, when somebody gives you a compliment, look at them and say, thank you. And so since then I have done that. And what I have discovered is that if you sincerely say thank you, then people just beam. They love it. They've given you a gift and you have acknowledged it, and then you in that way you're giving them a gift. But there are people who will say, somebody will say to a woman, oh, that's a really cute dress you have on. Oh, this old thing is 3 years old and it has, you know, spot here and this, and they're feeling like, when did I say that? So the exchange is really off. Speaking to Olaf Schubert's thing about doing everything, or his mother doing everything, I didn't grow up in your family. There were 4 kids. We didn't have much money. My father was originally a farmer. And we were not, until I guess before we could walk or take care of ourselves, she did everything for us. But that was, as soon as we were capable of doing things, that was over. And I remember spending endless summers out in the cornfield chopping weeds. And you have to understand, in Oklahoma, where I grew up, it gets really hot. And so you put on jeans, a shirt or 2, and then a long sleeve shirt, and then this Calistoga type bonnet, that has this like this. So basically you're covered, so that you don't get skin damage from the sun. Then you're out there just sweating like a pig if they sweat. And, you know, it's hard work. And then we worked in the garden. I learned lovely things like how to pluck feathers from chicken. And, you know, after she had wrung its neck and then chopped the head off, I never had to do that. But, you know, everybody took part in it because we simply had to survive. In the summer, we got food from the garden and we canned it, and it went down in the cellar for the winter, you know. So it's quite different from your mother, but there was a generation when the women did do everything. And the children were kind of messed up, I think, after that. So what I have suggested strongly to my daughter-in-law with my grandson is that she should have started when he was much younger. When kids are 2, they love doing things with you. It's the best time in the world to teach them how to do things, how to be a part of the family, how to share in that, how to basically selflessly take part in what family members should be doing. I really love Will Reed's description of this, and I've always been a little bothered. I guess it seems a little funny to say do good in secret, and then you get into all this mind stuff that we've talked about. I'm doing good in secret, and nobody's noticing. Gee whiz, I wonder why, you know, all this stuff. And so just to do what is right, or what needs to be done. And also we do that in our dojo because we're not fortunate to have a permanent place where we can leave our mats. We put them down before every class, and we have to take them up. And sometimes the kids need to get involved. I teach children's class, and sometimes they get involved in putting them away if there's no adult class after the Wednesday night class. And I was teaching that, or Saturdays, usually the adults put them away, but sometimes they get to help put them up a little bit, or to kind of sweep the dust off of the mats because of where we are. So I suspect, I mean, you have trained your students one way, but I suspect if you started suggesting that they're the little things that could be done and ask someone to do it, they would begin to step into some of that if they felt they could help you out. So that's it.
Thank you, Gloria. Yeah, that's interesting, you know, taking compliments and not, you know, you're right. People don't take compliments well sometimes. They, you know, you give them a compliment, oh, well, this is not so good. And they give you all the reasons why you should not have complimented them. I've always found that interesting because, yeah, people, you know, it's like refusing a gift. And when you give something, you should be very grateful for it, no matter what it is, instead of, oh yes, you know, it's because it's an exchange of energy, and that's what you're doing here. And I see Ilaria nodding, and I think she probably is in agreement or has something to say.
Hi, Sensei. Hello. The thought occurred to me at the beginning of class when we started talking about do good in secret. Expecting a reward must mean that you feel you are lacking something, which to me ties back to being grateful. If that makes sense. Right. If I do something and I expect a reward, it means I must feel like I'm missing something from my life or something that I want. And so I think gratefulness is kind of the key to that.
You know, these are all intertwined. And Toy Sensei always has an order, you know, and it goes from one order to the next. Just like when you do the Aiki Taiso, it starts out from very less moving all the way to much more movement. And I think the same thing with all of his writing. He basically specifically wants a certain order so that people can read it and kind of go, oh yeah. And it's always interesting if you don't see the orders is to look into it further. Oh, why did he say this first? You know, why does this you know, one step leads to another step to another step. It's kind of like it's all baby steps, and he's like leading you down the path so that when you do get to the end, you have the big picture. And I think that's very observant to go, oh yeah, that kind of leads back to being grateful. Yes, of course. You know, all of these, you know, I do like the translation that, you know, instead of saying 10 rules for daily life, it's 10 characteristics of a life with Ki. You know, building character. These are items, 10 characteristics to having a better character, or what somebody with a good character would manifest, as I like to say. With that being said, Kiyomi, how are you? Always interested to see your perspective.
Sentoku is a difficult one. I don't think I'm a selfish person usually, but when you say Intoku, I think I have a lot to learn from this. One time, I think I read somewhere in like a Buddhist calendar or something, and it says, whatever you do in a public bathroom, only Buddha is looking at you. So, I mean, it doesn't mean like people think that nobody's looking at you. So they could, you know, sometimes public bathroom, you find it very messy and stuff like that. So I don't know what kind of things are considered in Toku, but I can do as far as, you know, sometimes the toilet paper is missing. There's a toilet paper, it runs out, and there's an extra one. A lot of people just leave it there, but I can put it in set it in the new roll, so the other person, next person can use it easily. I think this kind of little things, I don't expect no one to see, but I can do it. And I can also do the cleaning the basin of the, you know, wash. That's my habit since my mother told me to do it. But I don't think, these are only little things. Like one time I think I complained about people leave the dog poo in the back and on the trail. And if I want to be really good, if it bothers me so much, maybe I could pick it up and, you know, carry it, but I don't feel like doing it. So I think in a way, I'm not that big person enough, because I pick and choose what I can do. So I have a lot to learn to do good things when nobody is seeing me. And yes. And or little things like the other day, my coworker, she's a new teacher. She had a lot of problem with her class. So she asked me to, you know, what's the tips. So I put some 7 tips for effective teaching or something. I gave it to her. So I wanted to truly help her. And I did that on Friday. And Friday night and weekends, I spent time. And then I gave it to her, and I had no response. She just said thanks. And she didn't even comment on what she read. I don't even know if she read it. So I complained to my husband. She didn't even say thank you. If it was me, I'd be so grateful. And he said, did you want to help her, or you wanted to receive her thank you? So I think I have a lot to learn from this in Toku. I'm just not there yet. So this is good to listen to everybody. Thank you.
You're welcome. And trust me, we all have a lot to learn, including myself. I can tell you that much. I'm notorious for acting like that. I do want to see if anybody else, you know, Linda or Ladini or Charlotte, do you guys have anything you'd like to say? I know a lot of times I don't ask you guys because if your video's off, I figure, well, you're just listening in and that's okay.
I just got video.
You did. I noticed. This is the first time I've seen you, Linda.
It was a harrowing of experience to get this video. Okay. It was unexpected, short notice. If there was ever a Murphy day, it was that day.
So this,
But yeah,
let me introduce you to the people who've not seen you. This is Linda Sasaki Sensei. I first met Linda Sasaki Sensei in Arizona. She was traveling with her teacher, Eto Sensei, he was like 90 years old when I saw him first time in Arizona. I mean, it was great. I mean, it was so, you know, I tell the story to this day. When I saw him, I went, holy Toledo, that's what I want to be doing when I'm his age. He was throwing, there was a guy from Tucson, Arizona with this, he looked like Grizzly Adams. He was like 6 foot tall, full on beard. It used to be one of Eto Sensei's students, apparently. I don't know. I was so new, I didn't realize, I'd never seen this guy before. But Eto Sensei used him as uke a lot. And this guy was like a bear. Do you remember that guy, Linda? I don't know who he was.
was he blonde with curly hair?
Yeah. Big beard.
Yeah, I do remember him. He was
Oh.
great.
Oh, that was great fun.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Well,
for-
that was an incredible experience of Otomo. And you know, like every Otomo, it's like if anybody did Intoku, it's my sensei, because you know I failed in a lot of places, and some of the stories are just too hilarious when I would find out after I thought I did something really great, and he said nothing. Then 5 years later, I get the answer.
Right.
But going back to Olaf Sensei, you know, in Toku with younger children, and we used to clean the classroom. We used to do the chalkboards, everything, sweep, mop. But they don't do that anymore. So it's like Germany. And then you have a, not only an ethnic gap, but a generational gap. So I consider Intoku, part of the Intoku for me is to train them, to make them do certain things. And it's just one hilarious situation again. You know, when I one time wanted to get them to sweep the mats. So I told them, a bunch of them, go get the brooms, sweep the mats. And they said, okay. And they all were gung-ho for it. They grabbed the brooms and then they started going, shh, shh, shh. And they were like spraying dust and debris all over the place. And I stood there a little odd and appalled. And I finally had to say, stop, what are you guys doing? Don't you know how to sweep? And here's the generational gap. You know, one of the girls put her hands on her hips and she goes, no, but I can vacuum. I had to teach them how to sweep.
Right.
You know, so, you know, you're working with not only a generational thing, but sometimes the gender thing. Most women will do a lot of the things, so that's how we were brought up. My cousin was first son. He was Bochang in his family. When he came over to Hawaii, all his cousins were female. So he thought he could just sit back and let us do everything. Unfortunately, we were Japanese American females. And we gave him hell. So consequently, he knew how to paint, because he had to help paint the house. He knew how to weed and be able to tell the difference between a nut grass and mondo grass. He knew how to do other things, like, you know, he helped he didn't know how to do dishes. There's actually a way to do dishes. And then when he went home, his younger sister told us, oh, thank you very much. When Takayuki came home, he came back a better person. You know, so there are rewards in different places.
Thank you for sharing. That's great. And I'm glad you got your video, so now you can share more. So it's 7 o'clock, it's time to close. I do have a little parable. So there's a Chinese saying that goes, if you want happiness for an hour, take a nap. If you want happiness for a day, go fishing. If you want happiness for a year, inherit a fortune. If you want happiness for a lifetime, help others in secret. And with that, I'll close. Thank you all very much. And I'll see you guys next week. Have a good week. Aloha.